This is Solving the Crime Scene of Jason Green. Summary of the crime scene. A man was murdered on his front doorstep, Jason Green. Nothing was moved on the scene upon arrival. The victim was face down. There's a mason jar with blood. The lawn chair was on the ground. A sneaker was also found facing away from the victim towards the woods, and a blood pool around the victim's head. Notes of the initial walkthrough. There was blood on the mason jar, which raises the question of if it's the murder weapon. The victim lying face down seems like someone came from behind. Also, victim had bruise on the back of his head. There was pooling of blood around his head. The sneaker facing towards the wood is something to look at when looking at suspects, and the knocked over lawn chair is also something to look at when looking at suspects. Notes of coroner's findings. There was trauma to the back of the head being significant and the cause of death. There was a small glass fragment embedded in the scalp wound that points to the mason jar as the murder weapon. The rough sketch. The sketch emphasized the most relevant pieces of the crime scene: the door, windows, the victim, the pool of blood, the mason jar, the lawn chair, the shared driveway with the neighbor, the sidewalk, and the sneaker. The sketches are supposed to help us with perception of the crime scene. In this sketch, the shoe may show that someone was running away. The lawn chair may have been used in a fight. The pool of blood shows the body was not moved, and the victim's position shows he may have been walking into his home. The first piece of evidence is the broken mason jar. This piece of evidence is the murder weapon, and it connects where the victim was hit and the glass in the head wound. The second piece of evidence is the sneaker. This matches the second suspect. It is facing towards the woods, showing that maybe they were heading that way, and because it was facing away from the victim, maybe they were leaving. The third piece of evidence is the knocked over chair. The fingerprints found match the victim and the third suspect. It may show a struggle, or it may just be being used as a defense. The fourth and final piece of evidence is the blood pool. This shows that the body was not moved, the approximate time of bleeding, and that there were no other fibers and evidence found in the blood. Important facts about the victim, Jason Green, is that his alcohol level was 0.36% the night that he was murdered. He was very outgoing, and he had disputes with his neighbors over property lines. Our first suspect is Mark Ellis. He did not have a solid alibi. He is the neighbor of the victim, known for his temper, has conflicts with neighbors about property lines as well. He recently fought with the victim over the fence, and there was no physical evidence found that matches this victim. The second suspect is Sarah Parker. She does not have an alibi. She knows the victim. The victim owes her money. It is known to be a large amount. She's had some tension with money on her own. She's a quiet person. She was heard arguing with the victim 2 weeks prior at a social gathering, and a piece of evidence that matches with her is the shoe. The third suspect is Porter Brown. He has a solid alibi. He was visiting family. He has a plane ticket and photographs. He was the victim's roommate, and he has drug charges. There were fingerprints found on the lawn chair that match him, but it could be plausible since they live in the same home. Our witness, Emily Dawson, heard loud arguing and a loud crash followed by silence. The timeline of the events are that there was an altercation that happened. Someone hit Jason with a mason jar, killing him in the back of the head. Emily Dawson calls the police, and the police arrive at 7:45 p.m. December 30th, 2024. Lastly is whodunit. I think it's suspect number 2, Sarah Parker. I think her motive is the money that she's owed, and I think if she's struggling with finances, she may be needing that money more than usual. I think also that there was an altercation heard 2 weeks ago, and there was an altercation heard the night of the murder. It is very likely that it was her, and that the shoe at the crime scene matches her. I think ruling out suspect number 1 is that there was no evidence found that matches with them, and then I think ruling out suspect number 3 is that 1, they have an alibi, and 2, the fingerprints do match the lawn chair, and that could show a struggle or someone defending themselves, but I don't think that just because a fingerprint of someone who lives there matches a chair that is used would necessarily make them the murderer.